Hey everybody, welcome back to the Emotionally Intelligent Parenting Podcast. I'm Stephanie Pinto, your host, you know me, and today you've just got me. It's a solo one. I'm talking about something that I think I haven't really specifically covered on the podcast before. I talk a lot about in some of my other videos and content and things maybe on social media, but here I thought I'm going to do a whole episode, a whole conversation with myself talking about the hidden triggers that our kids can have that sometimes if we miss, then we feel frustrated, maybe confused, maybe baffled, maybe frustrated or super duper mad. And sometimes we end up, making things worse because we don't realize what is actually happening. So because you just have me and I'm not interviewing anyone, I am here in my pajamas, which is exciting because, I mean, if you're watching on YouTube, you're going to see. Let me move my mic. I only just got them and I actually got my daughter a matching pair. I'm so excited. We've never been able to do that before. And it was her birthday a couple of weeks ago. And so you can kind of see it says chillin' with my bunnies. It's got a bunny and it's coming up to Easter time at the moment. So yeah, they were at the store and I was like, yep, you know what? I'll get her a pair and me. So here we go. I'm in my pajamas. Okay. So let's get back to the actual content. This is what I'm like when it's just me. And I think, you know what? No one's really listening, are they? I mean, I know you guys are, and I'm so grateful for that. But sometimes I'm looking around and I'm just in my tiny little office and I'm, as far as I know, I'm talking to myself. Anyway, if you've ever had your child kind of lose it over what seems like nothing, 1 second, maybe everything is fine. And then the next they're melting down because they've opened their homework book or because you asked them to get in the car or you've given the blue cup, not the red cup. You know what I mean, right? Sometimes we're left wondering like, what did I do? Or what is going on? Or what have you done with my child? Anyway, hopefully I'm not alone. I'm pretty sure you guys all know what I'm talking about. The truth is here though, that our kids are not intentionally being difficult. And I know, trust me, I know sometimes it really bloody looks like it on the surface level. It looks like they're just choosing the hard path. I've actually had so many parents that I work with and I coach and they're like, my kid is choosing the hard path. Like they're choosing this, like they're making a mountain out of a molehill. They're making it more difficult than it has to be. Like I totally, and when I hear the stories of what's happening, I'm like, yeah, that is exactly what I would think too. If I didn't know, what's going on under the hood, like under the surface, the nervous system stuff, the triggers, the fight or flight, like the brain development, all the stuff I talk about on the podcast. Anyway, I didn't want to make this a long intro. I just wanted to make it this is what we're talking about. I have made a list of 11 triggers, hidden triggers. Some of you guys, if you've been listening to the podcast for a little while, you're switched on, you might know some of them. You might be like, that's not a hidden trigger, but just like stick with me. It's more exciting to say that these are potential hidden triggers that we don't know and we don't realize. And then we go, oh my God, of course, rather than just saying, these are things that trigger your kids. Anyway, so as I was saying, the truth is our kids are not just intentionally being difficult. They're actually reacting to these unseen triggers that, their brain and their nervous system pick up on before they even have the words for them, if that makes sense. And so when us as the adults can spot these triggers ahead of time, oh my goodness, it's an absolute game changer. I'm still working on this, but I'm a lot better than I used to be. And to be fair, I have a pediatric therapist background. So I always say to people, I get how kids tick and I get how they work. And again, I'm not perfect, but I can very often see these things coming with my kids and with other kids. And I'm like, oh, that's happening. Or, oh, that makes sense. Like, no wonder, rather than me being like, what is going on? Like, why are you doing that? And are you serious? Now I'm like, yep, totally saw that happening. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to break down the 11 hidden triggers. I'm not going to take long. This is going to be a short episode, I hope. We'll see how it goes. But these really do affect kids' emotions and obviously then their behavior, because I always talk about the fact that emotions drive behavior. Plus, obviously, what you can do to support them from a place of emotional intelligence instead of, frustration, which tends to kind of pull us into those consequences and punishments and threats and stuff like that. So in my house, this definitely helps us to take things a whole lot less personally, which is massive because I used to do that all the time. That was like my middle name, Stephanie, taking things personally, Pinto. It's not, but you know what I'm saying. It also helps us not add fuel to the fire. It helps us act in obviously a much more emotionally intelligent, patient, compassionate, tolerant way. So we get the best out of a situation. You know, things are usually more productive, and we kind of move on with our day a whole lot quicker. It stops us from extending the conflict and just having things build and build and build. And also, the last thing I'm going to say is that it also, we're really starting to be able to teach our kids this stuff. And, you know, it takes them a long time. We're modeling, we're teaching and things. They have great moments and they have, you know, it feels like we go 10 steps back. But I'm teaching my kids to recognize these kind of triggers and what's going on when, let's say, their sibling is being really rude or hurtful or whatever. And really to then help them think more consciously about others' behaviour, like friends and the playground, siblings, you know, anyone, okay? So I think it's a really productive and really beneficial skill to teach, just looking for like these hidden triggers and what's beneath the surface. Okay. As usual, before we begin, I want to acknowledge the Darug Nation. They are the people who are the traditional custodians of the land on which I live, work and record this podcast. I pay my respects to all First Nations people, their elders and their ancestors, and I acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded, and I stand in solidarity towards a shared future. Okay, let's dive in. Let me find number 1 on my list. I have to scroll down from my notes. I made way too many notes. Okay, let's go. As you can see, I don't know how much am I going to edit this podcast episode. I'm feeling kind of lazy today. I think you guys are just going to get the raw deal. Okay, no, the raw recording is what I'm saying. Okay, let's go. Number 1. One very common, I think, but under-recognized hidden trigger is the overstimulation from sensory inputs. So if you think about the sensory system that we have and that we've been given as humans, typically we're taught the main 5, as in like sight, hearing, let me see if I get this right, smell, taste, touch. There's actually, I tend to talk about 8. So there's 3 more, but there's actually, from my understanding, a lot more potentially. We just kind of tend to go with the main 5. We're taught the 5, but then the 3 extra ones are vestibular. So that's your balance, proprioception, understanding of where your body is in space. What's the other one? And then we have interoception, recognizing the senses from within your body, like sensations from within your body. Okay. So like hunger, thirst, body temperature, skin temperature, bathroom needs, emotions, stuff like that. So our kids can get overstimulated from these sensory inputs. Think, if we typically think, this is a very generalization, but loud noises, bright lights, if there's a lot going on, a lot of energy, a lot of bodies in a room kind of thing, think of like the school hall or a dance, a concert or something like that. Even scratchy clothing, things like this can overload a kid's nervous system and an adult's for that matter. But we're talking about kids here, especially kids who have these sensory sensitivities. So for some kids, these things are not an issue. They can wear a bit of a scratchy top, or they can brush their hair with a bit of a scratchy comb, or they're okay in a loud, noisy place. For other kids, they're more sensory, they're more sensitive. And so this is like grating on their body, on their brain and on their nervous system. Like it's too much for them to handle. Okay. So it's really intensified. What we can do here is attempt to accommodate these sensory sensitivities, try to reduce the sensory overwhelm for your child. So for example, a common thing with noise sensitivity is using headphones or noise cancelling headphones and things like that. Maybe dimming the lights in a bright place, or soft clothing choices. There's a lot of different, like for example, socks that don't have seams and things like that, and clothing without tags. Sometimes I've cut the tags off my kids' clothing because they're just itchy in their neck. So things like that, it might be a really great way to have a conversation with your kids and say, what is bugging you right now? Is something feeling uncomfortable, and how is your body feeling? And then going from there, seeing if you can accommodate or remove or reduce those like bothersome or overstimulating sensations. Second thing, let's move on to number 2 already. I'm going through this list pretty quick. Second thing is hunger. People don't realize, and one of my kids in particular is like this. We all know the concept of being hangry, right? Kids can feel it even more intensely because their bodies are growing and their blood sugar can drop much more quickly than ours. I can go, particularly if I'm like engrossed in work and I've got a ton of things on, I can go till like 2 or 3 o'clock and then I'm like, oh my God, I'm really hungry and I miss lunch. When kids are hungry, often their impulse control will disappear. It can make them more prone to meltdowns. Their emotional regulation skills, like a lot of the body's functions, like if you think about it, glucose really is one of the body's fuels. And so if we don't have enough fuel, then we don't really work as well. And kids don't have the flexibility and maybe also the maturity to kind of handle that in a better way like we can. So hangry is a thing, and I teach both of my kids about being hangry and to check in with themselves and how they're feeling. So an emotionally intelligent maybe solution is we can offer them regular protein-rich snacks. Like, what are we actually feeding our kids? Please, like, I am one to give them chicken nuggets for dinner sometimes, like a really unhealthy snack here and there. Like, I'm not perfect, but ideally we don't want to wait for them to say, I'm really hungry, because by then they're probably already in meltdown mode. And I don't know if you guys heard it, but this was a few episodes ago. I'm trying to think of the name of the episode. And I talked about my youngest having a day where essentially she hardly ate, and it was towards the afternoon, and then something happened, with a big, like lots of kids and noise and things like that. And she was under her bed, like drew the curtains under her bed, too much, too loud. She didn't realize she was hungry, and she just was like shutting down. So definitely a thing, something to really consider if your child is like that. Number 3 is dehydration. Again, I don't think we realize, like, I have only just in the last year or so been reminding my kids to drink when they're at school and to keep their water bottle with them and things like that. Even minor dehydration can cause things like fatigue and irritability and trouble focusing. And kids often do not recognize when they're thirsty until they're already like absolutely parched and really struggling. Sometimes they might not even connect why they're feeling a certain way to the fact that they haven't drunk water and hydrated themselves. So obviously there are some simple, solutions for that, keeping a water bottle handy and getting, fun cups or silly straws and stuff like that to encourage your kids to drink. Number 4 is lack of sleep, fatigue. Like kids, particularly kids' self-control and their emotional regulation plummets when they are tired. Okay. Emotional regulation, I think, is one of the first things to go when sleep is lacking. And if anyone has had a newborn, then you will attest to that. Just that lack of sleep. It's really, really hard. And so, even for me, I have to remind myself, especially on the weekends, to get the kids into bed at a reasonable time. Even if I'm up late doing stuff or watching something, they need way more sleep than I do. And I can't forget that. So definitely prioritizing rest. Okay, number 5 is, I don't know if this is if this is something we recognize and know enough about. It's parental stress and the emotional climate at home. I always say kids will absorb our stress like little emotional sponges. They pick up on stuff that we think maybe we're hiding or we're managing really well, or we're having that disagreement or argument behind closed doors, or, it's a big thing and we keep, grandma's in hospital, but we're keeping it away from the kids. Like, kids will very often pick up on our stress levels and what we're feeling, even if we're trying to hide it. I'm not saying that we have to be robots or that we have to tell our kids everything on the other end of the spectrum. But I think it's just recognizing that if we're overwhelmed and we're going through stuff, our kids will feel it. Sometimes they are behaving in a certain way and experiencing big emotions as like a reflection of our tension and our emotional stress. So really, the emotionally intelligent solution is, like I said, it's not to just like shut down or be a brick wall or to tell your kids everything that's going on. That's not appropriate. But it's to check in with your own emotional state, get the support you need in the moment. Take some deep breaths and recenter yourselves. I talk about EFT tapping. Find some strategies and some techniques that help you with your emotional self-regulation. when you're going through stuff. I just think even if you're not going through stuff, like this is just so beneficial for ourselves. It does create a calmer home environment, and yeah, our kids feel that. Okay, number 6, another hidden trigger for sometimes our kids, big emotions and behavior. Transitions between activities or transitions between places. So moving from one thing to another, especially things like leaving a playground and getting in the car, or turning the TV off and coming for dinner, these things can sometimes feel like abrupt. They can trigger resistance in our kids. Okay, so sometimes we just got to get in the car, or it is school time, or, the dinner is getting cold kind of thing, or, we need to do whatever that thing is. Sometimes we do just have to make those transitions, but sometimes we can obviously, I was going to say smoothen. I don't think that's a word. Make them a little bit more smooth, and we can support the transitions and our kids in the transitions and give them some accommodations and supports. Things like countdowns and choices as well. Do you want to do 2 more slides and then we go? Or do you want to play on the swings and then get in the car? Do you want to finish your homework now, or do you want to do the rest like when you get to school and before the bell goes kind of thing? So giving as much choice and control in transitions and as much warning as possible can be really helpful. Obviously, do what works for your kids. Sometimes too much warning about a transition, especially if it's into maybe an anxiety-inducing situation, can be unhelpful. And yes, I'm acknowledging that there's a fine balance there for some kids. Okay, we're up to number 7. Ooh, this is a good one. I actually think. So to be honest, this was a list of 10 because, 10 is a nice number. And then I thought of one more and I was like, oh my God, I have to add it. So it's like a bonus one. That's why there's 11. But, and one of those is my favorite, but I think actually this one, number 7, is right up there as well. And it's also definitely hidden because a lot of us parents do not realize, we don't realize this is a thing. We don't realize how much weight this one carries. Okay, so I'm just going to stop blabbing. Number 7, the hidden trigger, is a perceived injustice or inequity. Like things are not fair. If your kids have ever said, that's not fair, kids can often have a really deep sense of fairness. And if they think something is unfair, like their sibling getting a bigger snack, or you saying we've got 5 minutes and then we've got to pack up, and then they feel like it was 2 minutes, or you kind of made it up and it was only 2 minutes. Kids can react intensely when they have this perceived sense of that's not fair, that's not just, there's an injustice, that's wrong, you tricked me kind of thing. And obviously our kids are not as cognitively mature as us, and they don't have all that life experience that we do. So they're going to often feel that, what they have to do, like brushing their teeth. If you don't brush your teeth for one day, what is can you see visibly any bad result? No. What about 2 days? No. What about 3? No. Maybe obviously the breath will start smelling, but do you know what I mean? Sometimes kids don't have that long-term wisdom and life experience and that trust to go, yeah, I get and I believe you, and I'm just going to have faith that if I don't do this thing, then there is going to be, a negative outcome, that kind of thing. So anyway, I don't want to get too lost in the weeds, but this concept of a perceived injustice can be really deep and really strong for kids. So an emotionally intelligent solution might be, straight off the bat, I always say, validate their feelings. I get that this feels really unfair, or I get that it feels like you haven't had enough time, or you haven't had a long enough turn, or whatever it is. Validate that this sucks, and I get that you are unhappy about it. Let's talk about it. Let's find a solution. We need ideas. There's so many ways to then problem solve out of that situation. I think the moment we validate, we decompress, diffuse the situation, and our child can relax a little bit because it doesn't feel like we're push and pulling against them. Do you know what I mean? The worst thing we can do is be like, why are you being such a baby? Or this doesn't really matter. Or what are you going on about? I said it was 5 minutes and it's 5 minutes. Or you've already had a long enough turn. It doesn't matter. I don't care. Just get you can see where that goes, right? It's just adding fuel to the fire. Okay, number 9 is physical discomfort. I mean, we're not in our kids' bodies, so we don't really know how they're feeling a lot of the time. We're just guessing based on our own experience, right? This kind of overlaps with the sensory sensitivities. Itchy tags, tight shoes, being too hot or being too cold can be really subtle but powerful triggers for kids. Also things like upset tummies or maybe TMI, but constipation, like those kind of uncomfortable or painful feelings, even emotional things, right? We don't know what's happened during their day at school. That stuff can be really powerful triggers. Sometimes our kids hold on to them all day at school and then they get home and then kaboom. And we're like, what is wrong with you? I just asked how your day was. Do you know what I mean? So we can simply ask them. I always say, and it's not my quote, I'm stealing it, I don't know where it's from. Get curious, not furious. So asking them, do you feel uncomfortable? Does anything feel uncomfortable? How are you feeling at the moment? Do a body scan if your kids know what that is, or teach them, like do a check-in. How's your head feeling? Is it a bit sore? Do you have a headache? What about your throat? Sometimes kids are coming down with a cold. At the moment, my son, he's like, I've got a scratchy throat. Do you have those eucalyptus lollies? I'm like, yes. We're in for a tough night. So checking in with them rather than dismissing it and being like, you're fine, it's not a big deal. And then the next day you're like, oh no, you're like full down with gastro or a virus or something like that. So physical discomfort, I'm kind of putting all of that and emotional stuff in there as well. Okay, we're up to number 9. This is, I'm just going to dive in. I don't want to preface this with anything. Number 9 is the hidden trigger of overwhelming expectations. So asking kids to behave beyond their developmental level, or asking kids to handle things that are beyond their developmental level. When I say developmental, I mean not just age or chronological. Like if we think, oh, you're 8, you shouldn't be, you should be able to sit for this long, or you should be able to do your homework in this amount of time, or you shouldn't be so emotional about this because you're 8 or 12 or whatever it is. Their developmental level, how they're developing, that is so unique. And I want to say that is never wrong. I don't know, people might fight me on that, but how your child is developing is how they're developing. We're all unique as fingerprints. I can feel myself going down a rabbit hole, so I will stop, but just safe to say, don't go off their chronological age, okay? So if we're asking our kids, or we're expecting our kids to behave in a certain way, like I just said, kind of expecting maybe a toddler to sit still at dinner time for 1 whole hour, this can create a whole lot of frustration. Also avoidance. Okay, so that just, we don't want to get bogged down into thinking my child should be able to do this thing, or I have seen you tie your shoelaces and get ready for school multiple times before, so I'm not going to help you today because I know you can do it. If they're not doing it, there's something getting in the way. There's a reason, right? Can we just get in there and help them? Can we be curious? Can we ask? Can we support them? Can we accommodate and help them? Because that's what I'd like my kids to do one day. If I've had a day, I'm like, I would love if you're like, Mum, can I make you a tea? Rather than when's dinner? Anyway. So solution, adjust your expectations to match not only their age, but their ability, their developmental abilities and their capabilities, which fluctuate, while teaching them skills and modeling and things like that over time. So just, I don't know, maybe the overall takeaway is be flexible. Be flexible and compassionate. Okay, we're up to number 10. So this one is, I'm going to say it carefully, exposure to conflict. This could be conflict at home. It could be conflict in friendships and other relationships, but things like arguments between parents, tension in the home, we all have it. Don't say that you don't have it. We all have it, right? But kids, again, will pick up on the conflict, right? And that can almost create, it's like reflecting a mirror into them. It creates this internal conflict. What is going on? I don't understand it. Why is there arguing? Or, you know what I mean? Kids will internalize things. I internalize things, and I'm in my 30s. So it's a thing, right? We have to, I think, just acknowledge that and know, okay, this is happening. How can I support myself and my kids and be really supportive and understanding? Don't jump straight to why are you being like this? Go to your room or time out or all of that stuff. We're doing whack-a-mole. we're trying to fix the behavior without supporting the emotions underneath. I think modeling healthy conflict resolution and reassuring our kids that they're safe, right? And people can disagree, and people can even argue, and people can fight, and not be on the same page and have really different opinions. And sometimes things get loud, and it is really stressful, but we're okay if we repair, if we come back and make amends, and if we apologize and we are accountable and we own our behavior. Like there's so much in that's an episode in itself. So I'm going to leave it there for that one, because I want to go to number 11, which did I mention before? I had a favorite coming up. This is kind of the 11th one, the one I wanted to add, and kind of partly based on the neuroscientist Lisa Feldman Barrett's work, but also one of my favorite other people, Dr. Mona Delahook, who's a clinical psychologist, and they both talk about, brilliantly, prediction error. Basically, just think of when things don't go as planned. So the brain is a prediction machine. I'm not the one to talk about this in depth because they are, and that's a neuroscience behind it. But if we just really acknowledge that our brains are, there's so much going on around us and so much to learn, and they're so complex, and the world is that we have to be able to get through a day without being overloaded and overwhelmed. Our brain has to make predictions to make things really fast and easy for us. So I know how much kind of muscle tension to put in my hand when I'm picking up my phone compared to picking up a 2-liter jug of milk, right? I can do that. I also make predictions about my kids, my husband, when to get up in the morning, what to eat for breakfast, and heaps of things, right? We're pretty good at predicting, and our predictions are often right, and our brain just does it like that. We don't even think about it. This is a big one because kids' mental blueprints for how things should go are still way under construction. When reality doesn't match up, you're expecting to be given the blue cup because currently it's your favorite one, but then mum gives you the red cup, which you used to love but you don't anymore, it triggers this reaction. That's not what I wanted. That's not what I was thinking. No, why didn't you know? Of course I didn't know, but do you know what I mean? So this is a big one. That just think of their mental blueprints and their brain's ability to predict and be flexible as well. When things don't go to plan and something else happens, we are pretty good at being adaptable and flexible. Our kids are not. Okay, we got to give them time. We have to give them time. Even sometimes when I think, okay, I've got my whole day planned out, or I've planned, if I plan to have my morning coffee, which I don't have till 10 because it's my kind of morning tea thing. And then I realize I go to the fridge and there's no milk left, or there's 1 centimeter of milk, and the kids have had it for cereal, and I'm like, oh my God, I was going to swear, but I'm like, come on, people, damn it, I don't get to, I'm like, do I literally leave and go to the shops and go get some milk because that's how much I want a coffee? So anyway, I can handle it, well, kids cannot, because that's the way their brain is wired. Okay, so I think an emotionally intelligent solution for that one is, I go back to one I mentioned before, validation. Acknowledge that they're disappointed, or acknowledge that it's not what they expected, or acknowledge that it didn't, their plans didn't work out how they thought, or something else happened that and they were hoping for a different outcome. Oh no, you thought you'd get the blue cup, that one's in the dishwasher, didn't realize. Ugh, that's frustrating. What can we do? Do you want the red one? Do you want to pick a different one? Do you want to, I don't know, wait till the dishwasher pings kind of thing? It just helps their brain to adjust when we can validate that, yeah, they feel upset or cranky or things haven't gone as expected, and let's help them plan to find another solution rather than just squashing their reaction and forcing them to just get on with it. Okay, so that's my list. We are done. I wanted this to be a short one, but what does it end up being? I don't know, 25, 30 minutes. I apologize. But I hope you got something out of it. And I just want you to think, next time your child or even your teen seems to lose it over something small or insignificant, just take a step back, pause for a second and be like, okay, what could be the hidden trigger here? I really do think that when we approach parenting with emotional intelligence, then we stop seeing our kids as just being defiant or limit testing and so on, and we start seeing them as humans with big emotions in little bodies. kind of like the rest of us. We have big emotions and we can only fit so much into our body. We're just human, and sometimes we get overwhelmed as well. So that shift kind of changes everything. I really want to say, if you love this episode, please share it with another parent who might need to hear it or might just get something out of it. It really does help the podcast grow. If you are ready to dive a little bit deeper into emotional intelligence and this idea of teaching and modeling to our kids rather than using consequences and punishments and things like that, if you want to make a shift, even if you think, how do I handle meltdowns? Or how do I get my kids to listen without yelling? If you want more peace in your home, you can just go to my website. I have lots of resources. I have courses. Go to stephaniepinto.com. That's probably the easiest, best place. I'm sure I have something there for you. And reach out to me if you want any help, or if you don't know where your first step is, then just email me. I will respond, I promise. Keep raising those emotionally intelligent kids. Reminder, that does not mean you have to be a cool, calm, collected robot 100% of the time. Absolutely not. That's why we have repair, and that's why we have apologizing and making amends, and you're allowed to be human. Okay, I'll see you guys next time. Same time, same place next week for another episode.